My name is Esther Josephine Murphy Judge.
Oh.
Want to tell where I was born?
Yeah,
I was born in Holy Family Hospital on March 28th, 1929 in Brooklyn.
Mother.
Parents.
To
Mother.
Julia and Matthew Murphy. And I am the oldest Murphy. And we moved to Rockaway when I was 3 years old. And then my brother was born, my brother Buddy, and then my sister Joan, and then my sister Sheila, and then my brother Michael. Mother died in January the 8th, 1940, in childbirth of Michael, who was born December 23rd, 1939. And my father remarried March 8th, 1943, to Sis Murphy, who had one son, James Egan. And from this union came Kevin and John Murphy. Until the 6th grade, I went to PS 44 in Rockaway Beach, and then after my mother died, I was sent away to boarding school, Academy of the Sacred Heart of Mary in Sag Harbor, Long Island, from the 6th through high school, graduating high school. Then I went to work for Equitable Life in Manhattan until I met Andy, Judge, who had 3 children, whose first wife was my first cousin.
Yeah.
And then I married Andy, April 25th, 1953. And 9 months later, we had Julia. So I wasn't married a year, and I had 4 kids. Okay. And then Julia was born February 6th, 1954. And then Mary Jane was born May 19th, 1957. Kevin was born September 10th, 1959. Patrick was born March 15th, 1961. And then we had a surprise. July 25th, 1966, we had Catherine. Tragedy happened to my sister Joan in 1939. My sister Sheila was like 13 months old, and my mother was pregnant with my brother Michael. And my sister Joan went down to see the kittens after my father went to work. And it was a little hot water furnace in the basement, and her nightgown caught fire. And then my mother tried to put out the fire, and she put it out, and my sister died. She was taken to the hospital and died like within 24 hours. And that was like September 29th. Then Michael was born December 23rd. And my mother never, ever, ever got over my sister, you know. And then she died the 8th of January. And 156, you know when you go into 96th Street?
Right.
Okay. There was one big house that's in with the bungalows. That was Mrs. Halpern. She owned all the bungalows, and she owned 156. 156 is the first house on the right, if you ever go down the block. My mother was waked in there. My sister was waked in that house. We were out of that house in September. In September 1940, we were out of there because May Ward took Buddy and Sheila into Brooklyn with her, and she had John at the time, and my Aunt Sis took Michael home from the hospital. So, and my father stayed with May Ward. You know, we didn't get an apartment. We lived with my cousin. And then until, you know, my father remarried. No, because I went away to school. And when I was like 9, I was not with them anymore. I was away from 1940 until June 1940, September 40 till June 47. So that was 7 years, you know. So 3 years before my father married, I stayed with May Ward, my cousin, on 45th Street in Bear Ridge. And then when my father married, then we went to 1159 St. John's Place and stayed there. But I was only there, like, with them, like, say, 4 years of holidays, you know. Then I graduated high school. I moved right back to Rockaway to my aunt's. Oh yeah, sure. They stayed at 1320 Sterling Place, Sheila, and well, Buddy had left home. Buddy left home before I graduated. Went to live with a friend of his. Sheila and Jimmy Egan and John and Kevin. Yeah. I can remember going to see Mrs. Murphy in the hospital. It was VE Day. Was it VE Day in August or was it VJ Day when Kevin was born? To go to Brooklyn. I think it was Brooklyn Jewish Hospital. Down there to see Kevin in the hospital. But all the St. John's had a trolley at that time. St. John's Place had a trolley. And all the papers were thrown out of the buildings and everything like they do in New York. That was all over the place like that. Yeah. When I graduated high school, I lived with a few of my different aunts. And I went to live with my Aunt Margaret on 96th Street, who was my uncle's wife, my mother's brother's wife. And she had two daughters, Anna and Helen, and a son, John. Anna died in March 1948 with pneumonia, and she left 3 young children. And then their father was Andy. Then I went to live with Anna, and I started to help the children with their homework and different things, because he was working in Department of Correction around the clock. And we started going out, and then we got married. And the children are Andrew, born in 1942, died in 1987, and Jack was born in 1943, and Joanne was born in 1945.
Tell me, Ma, when I go home, the boys won't leave the girls alone. They pull my hair and they stole my comb, but that's all right till I go home. She's handsome, she's pretty, she's the belle of the Belfast city. She's a court 1, 2, 3, please will you tell me who is she? Let the wind and the rain and the hail blow high, and the snow comes travelling from the sky. She's sweet as apple pie, and she'll get her own lad by and by. When she gets a lad of her own, she won't tell her mommy when she comes home. Let them all come as they will, but it's Albert Mooney she loves still. Tell me, Ma, when I go home, the boys won't leave the girls alone. They pull my hair and they stole my comb, but that's all right till I go home. She's handsome, she is pretty, she's the belle of the Belfast city. She's a court 1, 2, 3, please would you tell me who is she? She's a court 1, 2, 3, please would you tell me who is she?
When I grew up on 96th Street in Rockaway Beach, we had wonderful times. We went ducking for apples in the neighbor's house. There was no shorefront parkway, and the mounds of snow would be all along the top of the block, and we would ride the ramps of the beach, the ramps of the boardwalk down, ride the sled down. They used to pile the snow on the corners of the blocks, and you rode your sled down the big snow piles. But we don't have snow like that today, you know. But it was great growing up there because all the houses, most of the houses were empty, the bungalows and stuff. So you played Ring-a-Lirio around the houses and hide and seek and all that other kind of stuff, you know. So it was good. The beach was beautiful. The lifeguards had the catamarans. We used to sit, we have pictures of my brother and I sitting on a catamaran on the beach. Big beaches. Lots, and we had the jetties, and we had the ropes that you couldn't go out too far. It was altogether different. And we had Playland 2 blocks away from us, and we could see the roller coaster all the time. Then one year, when my mother was alive, there was a big fire in Playland, and we all went to the top floor, and we could see the roller coaster burning. So, you know, it was good times. Good times. The bars were great. We had Irish Town. We had 103rd Street. And I lived with my Aunt Nell at that time. And my cousin Anna and I would go out on Friday and Saturday nights. And we'd always stop and get an ice cream custard. Because then when you drank the beer, you wouldn't be sick the next day. It coated your stomach. So we always had a custard before we would go down to the bars. And 103rd Street had 3 or 4 bars on each side, and you just went in and out, you danced here and you danced there. And it was just lots of fun. You walked home at 3 o'clock in the morning and thought nothing about it. Everybody's door was wide open, and people sleeping on the beach at that time. And it was just like different, you know. It was real homey, real homey. My mother had a rooming house So I can remember, I know a girl now, Pat McNamara, who's about 77, and her
Hello,
mother
Mom.
rented from my mother every
Mom.
summer, and they were 3 children. They were in room 4 on the 2nd floor, I remember, on the top of the stairs. And when I would get a sunburn, Mrs. King would take me in and take care of me because my mother was busy, you know, getting the rooms ready for the other people and stuff like that. It was just amazing to think that I know this girl now after all these years, you know? Yeah. My mother rented the house from Mrs. Halpern, and then my mother, we lived there all year round. And then in the summer, my mother moved to the basement, and then fixed the rooms upstairs and rented the rooms upstairs. 96th Street, we moved to the basement too, and rented all those rooms. We had 14 rooms we rented. We lived in the basement in the summertime and rented the rooms upstairs. And when we first started out, you rented the rooms weekly, which meant that you had to have the people out by 10 or 11 o'clock so you could sweep and mop and change the sheets and have the room ready for 12 o'clock for the next family that was coming in. So it was a lot of work. You'd sweep the floor down and sweep the house down every day and mop the floor. And this man, Mr. Pettit, say, "Oh, come in, Mrs. Judge, you look tired, come on, and give me a drink." You know, 10 o'clock in the morning, you know, have a drink now, you know. But we had a great times. People playing the accordion on the porch at night, lots of parties on the porch and everything. It was lots of fun. And then I had nephews and a niece, and they would come down every Wednesday night with their father in their pajamas and their next-door neighbors, the Sweeneys, and they would sit on the 2 benches in the yard, and they would watch the fireworks. And their fathers each would have a beer, and then they would put the kids in the car and then take them back to Brooklyn and into bed. So the O'Donnells and the Sweeneys saw the fireworks every Wednesday night from the yard. So, well, Playland was great. Playland was great. Andrew had his first job there. Jackie had his first job there. Andrew lost his job because he gave all the pizza away. He wouldn't take the money from his friends. It must be 25 years, right? It must be. I would think it's about 25 years that it closed down. Yeah. And I moved to the basement so we could rent the 14 rooms upstairs. So, in the big part of the basement where the old burner was, Andy and I slept on a couch, a pull-out couch. And then the rest of the kids were all under the porch. You smiling at me. Slept under this porch. And then when Catherine came, we decided we couldn't do this anymore. So we stayed upstairs. We kept 1 room for ourselves. So we slept in that room with Catherine. And then for a couple of years we did that. We didn't rent that room. We just rented the rest of the rooms. So that was it. You know, I don't know. You know, I think they just realized this is the way you grew up. I grew up that way too with my mother. I can remember moving an icebox with my mother. I was probably 7 years old. Moving an icebox down a flight of stairs at 156. I remember when I moved into this house, all the mattresses had to be redone. So what we did was the mattresses on the top floor was 2, 4, 5 mattresses and a cot. We just threw them out the window, down into the alley. Then the guy came along with the truck and picked the mattresses up outside there. Yeah. I have to tell you this story. My Aunt Nell always came to help me, my mother's sister. So we were up on the top floor wallpapering the rooms. And my aunt was pasting the paper in the room in the front, and I was in the room in the back. And I came to get the paper because she said the paper was ready to be hung. And I come up, and out the windows I look, and I see there's a big fire in St. Camilla's. I said to my aunt, I have to run downstairs and call in to the fire department. There's a fire in the church. You take this paper, it's already pasted, and go hang it up, and don't worry about the church. I never forgot that. Ascension Thursday. I just remember that. So funny. Isn't it funny the things that just stay in your head? Oh, yeah. And, of course, the kids loved Playland. We had Herman the Goat Man. They would always go over and go on the goats. Underneath the Cynic Railway was this place, and he had all these goats in there, and the kids, we have pictures of Andrew riding the goats with, I think it was his Aunt Mary was with him there. Yeah. And that's it. I'm trying to think. Oh, and then Mary Jane's first job was in Martin's Corner, which was also part of Playland, you know. And Julia's first job was War Bombs. I forget where Joanne's first job was. Kevin's first job was when he cut his finger, was in Allen's grocery store slicing the cold cuts. We had to rush him to the hospital to fix his finger.
I guess that's it.
Oh, well, Andy died in 1992, and I was still working in the schools, and I retired in 1993, and I had a buyer for the house in September 94, but he couldn't get a mortgage until April 1995. So I got this apartment in the building in October of 94, but I didn't move in until the day after the closing. The day of the closing was my anniversary, April 25th. So I moved in here like April 26th. I lived at 10500 Shorefront Parkway, 105th Street and Shorefront Parkway. I think because when I went away to school, I just cried. A whole year I cried after that. If my mother didn't die, I wouldn't be here. You gotta remember, I was like 9 years old. My mother died, my sister died, my mother died. Then they sent me out 100 miles away to the sticks of Long Island. I don't know a soul out there. You know what I mean? I asked could I come home, and there was no money to send me home. My father would say, I have a card in there for my father, sending me $1. That's what they would send me every now and again, is $1. You know what I mean? Of course, it was 1940, times were tough, but everything is wonderful. Everything is wonderful. Yep. Ladybugs. Well, you know the story of the ladybugs, right?
I do.
It's a memory of my sister. And we wear rings and we wear necklaces. And I got a key ring from my nephew, Chris, and his wife, Stephanie, with a ladybug key ring. And I'm very happy with it. Ladybug shower curtain, ladybug everything. That's it. Yeah, and it keeps the memory going, right? Herpes and the judges, whoever see this, don't think I'm crazy. The life and times of Esther JJJJ, Judge.
Her eyes, they shone like diamonds. I thought her the queen of the land.